I think it's... Is it best to just hold it like this?
Probably. Maybe we could.
Hello. Put it on something. Hi, everybody. We're still waiting. Oh, Lordy. We're waiting for Sherry to hop on. So now
Take it further back. No.
it's too heavy.
Too light.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, we're trying to figure out how to set up the phone, you guys. Okay. Can you guys hear us well?
It's so weird not having people that can talk.
I know. All right.
Hi.
Hey. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Oh, I forgot to turn this off.
You did it. How's it going?
It's going fine. I just got stung by like a yellow jacket 3 times, so.
Great. We're expecting like a allergic reaction, are we?
No.
Good. Hi, everybody. Will y'all be posting this on your feed? Yes, I hope so. This is the first time we've done a live, so we're going to attempt to do that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Should we like wait a little bit, or do we just like start?
Yeah, let me scoot over because I thought I would be able to want to hold my phone the entire time, and I don't. So.
Yeah, we rigged ours up.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
So Sherry, where you at right now? Houston?
What happened?
Say, where you at right now? Are you in Texas?
No, I'm in Memphis.
Oh, you're in Memphis. Okay. I just stayed out there. Is your family in Houston or?
Yeah, they're there, but like they're now in majority of them are now in Memphis.
Oh, okay. You went to that barbecue place, the Porky's, Big Porky's, I think it's called.
I'm not a big barbecue person, but they love it.
Yeah.
We vote no on that.
We like, what do we like? We liked the sauce, the flavor, but there was something.
It was not. Texas barbecue is better than Memphis barbecue.
Yeah, I'm not a big barbecue fan anyway, so like I'll eat it, but it's not. I'm gonna go out and buy it. So
Nature not go to. I got you.
Well, hi everybody. I guess as people keep hopping on here, but we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Yasmin from the Gosey Guide. I'm just finished my last year and just graduated in March. And I am going to be a PGY1 pediatric resident this year after my maternity leave. So I will start my residency in October. And yeah.
Ladies first.
oh, let's say go ahead, Denzel, but that's fine. That's fine. So my name's Sherry. I am a current 4th-year medical student at Ross. People know me by doctor, and my name is Sherry from IG. And I'm currently finishing up an online elective in infectious disease via Atlanta Medical Center, and I will be done.
God, thank God.
Done the end of April and graduate May the 22nd. But to be quite honest, I was more excited about match than I am graduation, just because like it's virtual, so it's kind of
like kind of. It kind of just doesn't feel like it matters.
like okay. So yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be an incoming PGY1 resident at internal medicine.
Okay, it's all you.
Oh, my son. I'm Bobby Denzel. So I know some people know me as Bobby, some know me as Denzel. I'm a Ross graduate, currently going to be a PGY1 anesthesia resident at UT Houston this coming year. Originally from Texas, and glad to be joining you all today.
Yeah, so basically like the idea that me and Sherry, let me just say how we all know each other. We all went to Ross, but I think Sherry and Denzel have known each other before Ross.
Yeah, we met at like a...
What, 9?
Yeah, it was like college prep.
Yeah, pre-college program.
Yeah, Prairie View A&M, PVAMU.
Yep, that was like 2009, 2010.
Long time ago, guys, like over 10 years. So basically, Sherry and I were talking, and we were talking about when we were talking about revealing our scores. And I know a lot of you guys have asked and are curious about us doing a score reveal. And we were talking about it, and there's just something about just like being like, and my scores are blank. That to me doesn't feel like it's going to be helpful or productive. And the whole point of this blog, and I think Sherry's blog too, is to be helpful and is to support medical students. And there's just something about being like, and I got a blank on STEP, and I got this GPA. I just don't think that that itself is going to be very helpful. So we're trying to find a very productive way of showing you guys, you know, if scores, what our scores were and why that mattered and how that could be helpful to you. And so we're still kind of brainstorming about that. But what we decided is we're going to go ahead and do a Facebook Live, and we're representing 3 different experiences, one pediatrics, one anesthesia, and one internal medicine, about what we think made us well-rounded applicants. And we'll kind of touch on STEP scores, but still trying to figure out how, like, revealing the scores to you guys specifically, as far as Bobby and I, how we can do that in a useful way. And so that's kind of where we are at that. We have it written, it's there, it's just I want to find a way for it to be helpful for you guys. So we basically pulled together a list of things that we wanted to touch on about what we think made us well-rounded applicants, and we're hoping that that actually can be a little bit more helpful to you guys and give you like concrete goals, because the more people we hear from who tell us, oh, you know, I got this STEP score and I still matched, and I got this STEP score, you wouldn't believe it, I failed STEP and I still matched. And I want to communicate that with you guys, because we want you guys to realize it's not all about the scores. So, but anyways, well, if you guys ever have any questions, go ahead and add your comments in. But we have like collected all of your guys' questions from both of our Instagrams. But we'll start kind of with the list. And the first thing that we do want to talk about is your STEP scores. Let's just talk about it, because everyone is obsessed with STEP scores. And if you're in basic sciences, or even like your 3rd year, like it's so, everyone is obsessed with STEP scores, and we were too.
Yeah.
Like we were where you guys were. We were like obsessed with STEP scores until after STEP, and like probably applying, where we were like, oh, it's like an entry into a door, and then no one talks about it anymore. And it's like, why was I so obsessed with my STEP score? You know?
Right.
I don't know. Did you guys feel that way too?
Yeah.
I just felt like it was just like a thing, like for specific programs, like if you wanted to go to a specific program, like if you wanted to go to Yale or go to like these big name, you know, institutions, then of course your STEP score is going to be a point of topic. But majority of them, they have already set their step 1 filters, their step 2 filters. And I mean, you can look at, in some of them set filters, they don't abide by them.
Yeah. Yeah. Or else we wouldn't have gotten interviews. And some of the people I know who have reached out and said, hey, you know, we had a follower reach out, and she said she was comfortable with us sharing with you guys that she got a 197 on STEP. and she matched her first time into internal medicine. And so I think it's just like this construct we have in your head that, like, now don't get me wrong, your score is important. And
Right.
I'm only speaking about 3 out of tons of specialties here. So this might be completely wrong for OB-GYN or surgery who are more focused on step 1 score. And so keep that in mind. But from our experience and from people we've talked to, people get lower scores, 210 and matched into ER, 212 and matched into anesthesia, failed step 1 and then retook it, matched into peds. I mean, countless people I can name for you guys. So don't put your be all end all is my step 1 score.
Right.
That's what we are trying to say, I guess.
Obviously, you take it serious because you know, maybe that is something that motivates you to go after, like you set a goal and you want to hit that goal. I have the big picture perspective here that there's more that goes into being an applicant and a strong. So yeah, I agree. We all have that. What's your step score? I want to know. It's like a number crave, and it's fine to have that crave, but to also still focus intrinsically on yourself, and you know what your averages are for your specialty of interest. So like that's where I want to tailor my goals for my step score to be around. I just want to be around because that's what gets me in the door.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it like that. That's how one thing you can maybe take our step scores if we reveal them to you as of like, okay, well, geez, you're right around the average. You weren't off the chart or, below the chart. You were just right there in the middle. And that's maybe a good zone to look for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because I also know people who've gotten like stellar step scores and then don't match into their, number 1 or number 2 choices or even match at all. So, it's more to it than just step scores. And just to reiterate what you were saying is that, step scores do play a part of getting your foot in the door. But I definitely got university interviews that said on their website that I'm going to take my step score. And literally, I was one of the first people that they sent in invitation. So it wasn't like, they sent it to me like at the end of the match cycle. Like, no, this was at the very end of the early match cycle. And they said, hey, you need a 230. I didn't have a 230. I'm just being honest. Like, I'm not going to give you my exact numbers because I don't think it's that helpful. But I think that when we talk a little bit later, when you come from a perspective of not only just having step scores, but other things that make you as a more complete applicant. And for one, having a personality is definitely going to help you a lot because what they're looking for, yes, they know you're smart. They know you're going to do well. They know you're going to pass your boards because you've passed them. Or if you failed them and you passed them, either way, you still pass them. They know that. They want to know if you are the great fit for their program. And you may be the smartest, you may be the top of your class, you may have top stellar step 1 scores, but you may not be a fit for their program, and you won't know that until you interview. So it's just, you have to keep everything is somewhat subjectively when it comes to match, because those are the people who are like, hey, can I be with this person every day? Can I, be with this person for 3 years or 4 years for anesthesia? So yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that part later.
I will definitely touch on that.
And that's, that'll be kind of towards the end after we kind of get through some of it, but we'll bring that back up, the interviewing.
So important.
How that was. So the next thing we have is GPA.
Well, before we move on to GPA, let's talk about step 2 CK. And the only thing I have to say about that is you just want to show them that you can improve. So try to get a higher score on your step 2. Does that mean you got a 200 on your step 1 and then you improve to a 220 on your step 2 CK? Great. Like, from what we've heard and from the feedback we've gotten on our personal scores is, wow, you really improved your step 2 score. Things like those are the comments I've gotten in my interviews. Like, wow, you really improved your step 2 score. That's like the extent of what I heard about my step score. You have solid scores, like just, like, oh my gosh, wow, that number specifically is, So that's all I have to say about step 2 CK is just show your improvement. And I think that's kind of what they're looking for.
Yeah, the same here. They were like, okay, step one was okay, but step two, yeah, you really showed you did really well on step two CK. And I know for some people that didn't like make their mark and they made improvements on from step one to step two, they still got compliments on progress because at the end of the day, they're looking for improvement because when you come in as an intern, you don't want to be the same person that you came as an intern as a second year or the same person you are about to leave. So if it shows that you are able to adapt and learn from your mistakes and be able to be a sponge in order to articulate everything that's going on versus someone who got a step one, like say they got a 205 and then they got a 200 or they got a 205 and they got like a 215. That shows you are, making progress. And that's the stuff that they like to see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But
Totally.
yeah, GPA.
Oh, GPA. This is one of those things people ask all the time. How does GPA play a role in your application, and does that get you removed from the interview or not looked at? Me personally, I feel like GPA is almost at the bottom.
Yeah.
Matters. You have your step score, which kind of gets you in your door, and then you have your rec letters, and you have your personal statement, and then you have networking. And I think those are kind of the tiers that it goes down, and GPA is at the bottom. Obviously, you,
Tell them why you think that, though.
I think that because my GPA was not impressive. I actually had a C average kind of coming out of basic sciences.
Mm-hmm. I did too. I had like a C or B, like it was like either like a really low B or like a really high C.
Yeah, I was like low B, like
Three something. I don't know.
I wasn't even lower than that. And but obviously, when I got to clinical sciences, every rotation I took seriously to build my GPA up. Yeah. So when I did, I had a 3.5, 3.57, but there was an improvement from basic sciences, but it wasn't a 4.0. So I just say that because I don't think that was anything that caused my application not to get looked at. And I think GPA, while you should work at improving it at all times, it's not going to be something that's going to take you out of the running for what you're interested in.
We get a lot of people who message and they say, hey, my basic science GPA, and they're like really worried about their basic science GPA. And we just want to show you have a whole nother 2 years of GPA. Yeah. And let me tell you something. You're going to most likely get all A's. Most likely. There's going to be B's. And it's okay if you get B's. We got to be an OB-GYN. It's okay. And your GPA is going to go up during clinical sciences. It's just naturally going to go up unless you're like the most horrible student ever and you don't come to clinical sciences. And your GPA will go up. And that goes for people who are afraid that they had to repeat a semester or they failed a semester and they have to repeat. We know many people. We know someone who just matched OB-GYN who failed a semester and matched OB-GYN first try.
Yep.
I'm telling you guys, everything seems so it's just so overwhelming and like so hard and impossible. And it really isn't. Like, it's not impossible, guys. That's what I have to say about GPA.
Sherry, do you want to take over gaps? Did you ever have any gaps on your time at Ross?
Oh yeah.
That was the next topic I wanted to transition to. Do you want to take that one?
And we're writing questions down, guys. We'll get to them at the end.
So the gap. So I did not purposely have a gap. So what happens is, which they've changed this recently when I was doing the internal medicine. What is it? The internal medicine Zoom with some of the chairmen. So before with Ross, you had to pass the comp. Now they don't have to pass the comp before they take step. I didn't know that until like a couple weeks ago. So before I was doing 5 semesters, I did the curriculum track. I did 5 semesters. I passed each semester the first time. And then you know, we got hit by Hurricane Maria, then we got translocated to Knoxville, then it was the boat and all that other stuff. And then by the time I got to the end of spring semester, I was freaking exhausted. Like, I was so tired of moving. I moved like 4 times in like 3 months. And by the time, like, the last semester was like the hardest semester, but it was definitely my best semester because I was like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Like, I'm about to just study, 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 studies. I'm not trying to stay here. I'm trying to get off the clinical sciences. So, with that being said, let's take the comp. At the time, I had to take the comp like 1 or 2 weeks after your final semester, and I didn't study for it. I didn't study for it. Like, I was tired. Like, I would just, like, you know, I would just take it again. And so I failed comp the first time. Then the second time, I think there's like a, what, 2 month time period you can take it, because I took it in July. And in July, which you'll hear on my medical school journey. So in July, I was thinking that I was gonna stay in Knoxville and just study. But you know, when you are not in school, you have no financial aid. No financial aid means no money. No money means no money for housing and rent and food. So I had to take my butt back home. So I had to move again. And I was moving the same time that I was studying for comp. So that went out the water. So I got like a maybe like 67 and like a 68. And then I was like, okay, so I'm home. I'm not going to do anything but study for comp. So I finally took it like maybe like a week or 2 weeks after my birthday in September. And I finally passed the stupid thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, finally. Well, it's not stupid, but it was just like super annoying that I was just like, I wasn't studying for it. It was just like other things were getting in the way of me studying for it. So I finally took it the third time. And so that was from May till September of the same year. So that's like, what, 4 or 5 months. And then I came up with the brightest idea to say, hey, I think I should study even longer for step one, which was not the greatest idea because the longer you study, the more you're going to forget. So during September and December, I kept pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back. And I finally took it like December 19th or December 20th. And I was like, man, I shouldn't have pushed my exam back. I should have just taken the comp. Okay, study like 2, 3 more weeks and take it and be done. But I was so nervous, like, oh, step one. So like same thing, you guys be messaging us about step one. I was like, oh, step one, I really had to study, study, study. And I ran myself into a wall and I couldn't remember anything. And I got in there and was just like, well, that didn't go as planned. So, and then when I got my score back, I was like, that didn't go as planned. I don't care. I'm still applying for IM and I'm not doing backup. IM is what it is and that's it. So I took like, that was from May till I started IMF in January when IMF was a thing. Now IMF's not a thing. So that was what, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. That's like 7 months off.
Yeah. And we had the exact same thing happen, except so I had to take it 3 times before I passed, and Bobby had to take it 4 times before he passed. And so we were just like pushed to the maximum. We had a 11-month gap, about 2.5-month gap, studying comp and stuff. And so we had a huge gap on our list. And someone asked, why wouldn't you want to take comp? It's not necessarily that you don't want to take comp. I think comp is like, it's just like doing an NBME online. It's the same thing. So I think you should use your resources and take NBMEs while you're studying for STEP, but it was holding everyone back. And they forced you to take 8 weeks off every time. So you would fail, you'd have to wait 8 weeks before you could schedule the next, have to wait 8 weeks again, have to wait 8 weeks again. And it kept pushing people back. And that was like, I mean, it was like, you felt so hopeless at that time. Like, we were like devastated. Every time we failed comp, it was like the worst feeling in the world. We thought we were going to fail out of Ross. Like, and a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it is. I mean, try your best on comp. And if you can take comps for practice, then do it. But we all had that gap. And then I know me and Bobby had a gap again
for step 2
in 4th year because of COVID and step 2. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
2 months maybe. There was no rotations. I mean, okay, hold on. Let's do this. So now Ross doesn't require you to pass comp before taking step. Correct.
Right.
You have one comp, and it doesn't matter if you pass it or not. You get to take step.
Which I think is a lot better, just to see where you're at, because I felt like the whole issue with a lot of people who had to retake it was the timing, like you were saying, because you couldn't say, okay, let me just fix whatever is going on, and let me just sit down for going on for like 2 weeks and then be done. You had a window that you had to take it. You couldn't take it any earlier. You couldn't take it any later. They had like you set in stone, just sitting there for 8 weeks, like.
We're so burnt out. Like 8 weeks is a really long time to be in a dedicated study period alone. Like that's just it. Oh my gosh, it was so long. We were studying for so long. So I'm glad they got rid of that. But so that doesn't really matter anymore. But the point to say is that some schools, first of all, this is for all of our followers, and some schools do still require comp, and we've gotten people who message us about that. And we're just trying to say is we've had many gaps. We've had 3 gaps on our application. And this is how it went in interviews. I see you had a gap. Yes, I had to take a school-related test multiple times. Okay. And then they moved on. And that was it. So it's not like, I remember thinking gaps, like I would never get an interview. This was going to be the demise of our application was the gaps. It's not the demise of your application.
No one asked me that.
Like, and if you have a reason, which there's a reason, like, for example, all of you people on here who are held back because there's no rotations for you. I know there's a lot of you guys on here and you're pushed back many months and you're just sitting there doing nothing. It's not your fault. So that's what you're going to put on there. You're going to say, I had a gap because blank. And that's okay. But what I would say is if you have a gap right now and you're doing nothing and you already took step, you need to be doing something with your time. You should not just be sitting around doing nothing just because Ross can't put you into a rotation. There's a million other things to better yourself during this time.
They'll ask that too.
They do email you 500 times telling you not to take step unless you're passing CBSEs.
Right.
Is there a comp for the step 2 CK? Yes, there is. And you do have to pass it still. And that one is we passed, I think I passed on the first time, you passed the first time.
Yeah, the first time.
It's different. Step 2 CK is much easier test, much more enjoyable to study for.
Because you're taking MBMEs every rotation, so it's like just taking another MBME.
Yeah.
So it was by that time you've already taken what 6, 7 of them, so just like, okay, whatever, take it again.
It was much better, that one.
Yeah.
Someone says, does that count online electives? Online, if you're in an online elective, you're enrolled in school. You're not in a gap.
Right.
It's only if you're in no electives at all. So,
your ERAS application, I think they'll ask you like if it was like more than 4 years, I think you had to say, oh, what'd you do? I just said I was studying for step 1. No one ever asked me like, why'd you take so long? Like they're just like, hey, tell me about yourself. Like that's literally what I got.
Like, what were you doing during your gap, basically?
Yeah.
You have a gap. What were you doing? Oh, I was actually working on my nonprofit. Oh, great. Like whatever you're doing. Oh, I was being a mom.
Right.
And I was parenting. Oh, cool. Yeah, I actually took time off because my mom was sick and I was helping her get better. Oh, okay, I understand. Like whatever reason you have for a gap, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just tell them about it and then they literally move on. That's all I was asked. Oh, you have a gap? What is it for? Oh, okay. And then moving on, So I think that's all about gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll touch on those this question about interviews when we have it written down for you guys. Okay, so I guess the next thing we can talk about now is really like what made you a well-rounded applicant and what actually goes into your application that we think was actually really important. And the first thing we have written down, because I think you could start working on it in your 3rd year and you should start right away, is your letters of recommendation. I think, I don't know, because, and all of us, by the way, we're all speculating because we aren't program directors. So we have no idea what they actually care about, but this is what I think we had strengths in, and I think it possibly mattered. And I think letters of recommendation, people often like wait until 4th year to ask for letters. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. And the reason why I'm saying that is, why not get as many letters as possible so that you have the choice of what letters you're putting on your ERAS application. You might not even know what specialty you're going into. And also, you don't have to have letters from exactly the specialty you're going into. So, as soon as you start your 3rd year, my best advice is anyone you have a connection with. Any internal medicine, OB-GYN, psych, it doesn't matter what you're going into. If you have a connection with somebody, and you will know if you have a connection with somebody, ask them for a letter. And you ask them right after, at the end of that rotation with them. You're with them for 2 weeks, you can have a connection. I promise you. 1 week, and you can feel a connection to a preceptor. At the end of that week, I would love to ask you for a letter of recommendation. If we ask for letters in 3rd year, do we have to have them right away? So here's the hard part. It depends on where you're doing your rotations. At Kern and at SJMO, this is the only 2 places I know for sure who do this. As soon as you ask for a letter, the person can write it and give it to the coordinator at that site, and they will keep it safe for you. And so that's the benefit of going to somewhere like SJMO, which is in Michigan, or Kern, is at any time you get a letter written at that time, because they'll remember you, they'll keep the letter for you. Places that's not the case, and you're going to have to ask them to write a letter. They might write it for you then, and they'll keep it. You don't get your letters ever. You know, and there's one situation where we'll talk about where you might touch a letter, but you're not supposed to legally. So my recommendation is to ask for a letter right then. And let's say you're asking for a letter then, and they say, ask me next year when you're applying. To make sure you have this person's cell phone number and email, not one or the other, both. Because you're going to get to that situation where they don't work there anymore and it's not the right email. And so if we ask for a letter in 3rd year, we have them write it right away. And then I was at a meeting with 3 EM program directors, and yes, they said the LRs are very, like EM is one of those programs that they have specific letters, like they're letter people. So I think letters are a big deal. But I think all of my letters, I'm trying to think of my 3rd. Yeah, all of my letters are from 3rd year, you guys. For my application. All 3 of them. And I maintained relationships with these people. When you meet someone and you have a good connection with them, this is the start of networking. This is when you keep a connection with that preceptor and you go visit them and you let them know, hey, I took my step 2. Hey, I started this volunteer organization. I want your opinion on this research that I'm doing. Whatever it is, keep the connection with those people, because that's the start of networking. These people could know other people. They could just be somebody who's a mentor to you and really help you one day on, like, if you're struggling with something, or you want their opinion on a program and you have no idea what one person might know or who they might know. And so as soon as you have a connection with someone, you should be maintaining that relationship from then until you forever. I mean, forever. Like, just keep maintaining that relationship. So that's like my biggest advice about letters of rec is just start. What is your thoughts about letters?
I agree too. Start right away, but also it's okay. Like for instance, when like I took my electives in like anesthesia, and this is what I wanted to go into as my specialty. So about 2 weeks into my rotation, I told the the director of anesthesia at Kern that I would be asking for a letter at the end of this rotation. And I asked, what are some things that I can improve on to strengthen my letter for the end of this rotation? And this is just a common way of asking for feedback in order to just make that even better. And those are things or ways you can ask, you're going to be proactive in asking. And then this also brings attention to you as they're working with you in the OR or amongst the team. They can really see how you interact, and they're listening to other people's talk about you now, rather than just waiting at the end and trying to think back what all that you did over the 4 weeks. Now, from moving forward, they're thinking about, okay, let me see how you're working. Let me quiz you a little bit more. Let me see how your knowledge base is. And it goes into strengthening your letters of rec. So don't be afraid to ask early, like Yaz was saying, but also maybe put a little bit of how can I improve it, so you can show that you're always working at yourself to become better. And that's what a lot of people see. So like you ask, well, how can I go into my first rotation as a third year and ask for a letter in my very first rotation? Well, there's that, like what we talked about with steps. They want to see improvement. So day one, you come in, yeah, you may be able to gather every information you know about the patient, but you don't know what is pertinent. But come four, you're giving presentations on your patients, and you know what exactly is pertinent. You know what your treatment for that patient is now. And that improvement, that incremental improvement, is what really shows that, okay, this person is hardworking, and they're wanting to learn, and they're getting better in their knowledge base. This is what I would want on my team, because they're going to go the extra effort and, continue to grow and learn. So I think those are things don't be afraid to ask early.
Yeah. And I think like people always ask, like, how do you ask for a letter of recommendation? And me and Bobby always did the same thing. We printed out our CVs. We printed out, towards the end, our personal statements once those were done. And we would go in with those papers ready and say, hey, I was wondering if you would recommend, or if you would, what's the word? Sorry, pregnancy burn.
Write me a strong
letter. Consider, that's the word. I was wondering if you would consider writing me a strong letter of recommendation.
And you had all your information in there, so they could see your CV, see your scores, see your what you've done on your resume. And then we also gave them a piece of paper that SJMO gave us about how to write the letter, as well as how to return the letter, because that's also another important part.
And then just get their contact info. Do you have anything to add to that, Sherry, about letters of recommendation?
Well, I asked for mine the first elective. I wasn't playing any games. I wanted to collect as many recommendation letters I could. So I had like maybe 7 that I could choose from basically every specialty except for peds, because I was like, peds isn't going to help me. So the field I want to go to does not deal with kids. But he actually asked me, did I want a recommendation letter for him? And I said, no, it's okay, because I'm not going to go into anything that deals with pediatrics. So with recommendation letters is, you're not always going to connect, because you're not always going to connect with every attending, but some rotations, you have multiple attendings. Yeah. So it's easier to ask for one out of like possibly 3 out of the attendings that you work with. So I found like 1 of 2 that I was really that I really connected with inside. Then I found 1 in family medicine out of like 3. Then I found 3 in internal medicine, and then 1 in general surgery. So I think, and 1 in OBGYN. So it's just like really making genuine connections. Like if you feel like you don't have a connection with that person, please do not ask them for a recommendation letter, because you cannot see what they say in the recommendation letter. So you're going to be having a blind eye to whatever they write, that every program is going to be able to see, because you want a strong, what would you consider a strong CV? Okay, sorry. What would you consider a strong, well, I'll do a recommendation letter first. So recommendation letter, you want to have that connection with the attending, like a genuine connection. Like don't be fake and not be yourself. Like just be yourself, and it will naturally come. You don't have to force a connection that you have with somebody. So that's how you know, for one, that they're going to be in a recommendation letter. And just like they said before, you want to make sure you say, consider a strong recommendation letter, because you don't want to have a recommendation letter that they just wrote for everybody that they saved in their computer and put your name in and change the date. You don't want, you want a personal letter, very personalized letter. And I could definitely tell that mine were personalized because I literally got comments on every single recommendation letter that I had in each of my interviews about how strong they were and how that they knew that it wasn't, you know, an old recommendation letter, or that they actually really wrote it from their heart, or really wrote it from their personal experience with me. And that's the kind of things that you want, because they really look at that. Because not every, like, again, not everything is about scores. I got more, I mean, I got compliments about my step 2 score, but I got more compliments about, hey, I mean, they would just take it, they just had the paper and were reading from it. Like, I had no idea what they said until they told me in the interview, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that was cool.
Yeah.
But what would you consider a strong CV? I think we're gonna get to that, like, all around the excellence. Yeah.
Jerry, I have a question for you. I got asked this in the orientation I did this past last week. So, do when a attending says, "Hey, Sherry, you just write your own letter, and I'll sign it." What are your thoughts on that?
Uh,
Okay, we're all on the same page then. We all feel the same way here.
That's all. Enough said. That's all we had to
Yeah.
say.
It happened.
I really need to not wear my expressions on my sleeve.
It's so great.
But
That's what happened.
I mean, if that's the only one that you have for the desired specialty, I guess, but you really want it to come from their perspective. You don't want it to come from your perspective, because it's your perspectives, and it's not gonna, I don't know.
It feel genuine. Like, I feel like someone's gonna be able to read through that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, first of all, I don't think it's like legal or whatever. Like, there's law, whatever, but that it really does happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to you. That people ask us to write our own letter, and we just say, "Okay, thanks," and you just move on. We didn't write them.
Yeah. Just say thank you for the opportunity, and you move.
Never gonna ask you about it again. I promise you that. If they want you to write your letter,
They're not gonna ask you.
they asked you to write your own letter.
Yeah, they're not gonna ask you about it.
So I have a pro tip for those like who ask a letter from that you're on the fence as if you had a good relationship with that attending or not. A good way to see if that letter is going to be strong is just to read your MSPE that you asked for after that rotation. And if you see it and it's only like 1 sentence or 2 sentences, this was a very good student.
Strong doctor.
Strong doctor. Very strong for you. But if you see the MSPE and it's like a paragraph long saying the student was very hardworking, on time, he'd be a great asset to the team, that you know is going to be a strong letter that person is going to write for you, because they took the time to do that on your MSPE. So that's a little pro tip if you're like on the fence about, is this going to be a
What
good
letter should I use?
Right, exactly.
That's true. Yeah, so I think that's it about letters. We were talking about it for so long, you guys, because that's one of the things that I think is a big deal.
Yeah, they talk about it a lot too.
Like, they'd be like, wow, I could tell that you were pretty close with this preceptor. They wrote a really nice letter about you.
Or even, this is where the networking starts. I had a letter from an attending, and he said, I was in an interview with the program director, and he was like, hey, so-and-so, I know this doctor. We went to residency together. And he wrote you this letter. And I was like, yeah. That's my boy. He was like, yeah. We used to give each other a hard time. I was like, I'm about to tell him I ran into you in the interview. And it's just things like that. You never know, like, who someone's writing a letter for you may know, outside of just that hospital system you're in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the next thing on our list is personal statement. And I think this is probably dependent on what specialty you go into, but I think like the best advice I have for personal statements, and Bobby and I will post our personal statements on our blog. I'm just working on a blog to go with that. But you'll see when we wrote our personal statements, we did it in a funky way where paragraph 1 is a story. And the reason why we did that is because I think it's really important for your first paragraph to draw someone in. And if you fail at that, they're not reading your personal statement. And we've gotten that feedback multiple times. We did so many mock interviews, and they would say stuff like, honestly, I don't read personal statements. Honestly, I breeze the first paragraph, and I don't care. But the feedback we had gotten from ours was, especially Bobby's, was this is the first time I read a personal statement and actually read the entire thing. And stuff like that is what they were giving him as feedback. And I think it was really just putting some like love into your writing and like realizing personal statement is like the only place where you can be yourself and like write something about yourself that you really care about and kind of show your like emotional side and why you care about medicine. And it's like this place where you can really just be vulnerable with a program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think personal statements in some situations do have a strong, I mean, I don't think that they're everything, and I don't even think that they decide that you have an interview, but I think they're like, wow, I really liked your personal statement. Like a little extra cherry.
Right, right.
Our experience on the interview trail was. But I think the only thing that I have to say about personal statements is start it early. Like we started ours in March or something. Like just start it as early as you can because it takes so much time to like really figure out what you care about. And we'll post a blog about a guide to your personal statement that hopefully will be helpful, and then we'll post ours on there so you can kind of use them if you choose to. But that's all I have to say about personal statements. I don't think they're a huge deal, but they could like, you know, put a little.
Yeah. It's like just another view of yourself that's outside of the step one scores and GPA. And they just use it to, if they don't really use, to me, they don't really use it that much, but I think it's just another way that they can see who you are as a person and your journey. Because a lot of people talk about their journey, because I know I did. And I had like one person talk to me about my personal statement out of 13. So, yeah, I mean, I started off my personal statement. It was like 4 pages. So,
She wrote a whole book.
and so I was like, I had to get people to like help me cut it down because when you talk about your journey, especially mine, like mine was not like smooth at all. So I had to like figure out how to say the same thing but shorter and still get the same point across. And that takes time. So do not wait for the last minute. Oh, I forgot to say this. Your personal statements get uploaded, I think maybe a couple days or 24 hours. But those letters of recommendation, they take days, business days,
Yeah.
uploaded to ERAS. So you want to have all of your recommendation letters by at least August.
Yeah. Just have it ready to go early.
Yeah.
Be overly prepared because you'd rather have like extra time than for someone to put a letter in for you. And there's going to be situations where like you're going to have a last minute letter and it's totally it's okay, but try to be like super on top of things. And I think if you do your personal statement early, you're going to be much better off because you're going to be able to focus on getting your letters in and your CV and
but also doing multiple drafts of your
book.
Like we did 4 or 5 because I'm not a writer at all. So I write like I talk. So I had to really get a lot of grammar correction in my writing. Then I also had mentors who were in anesthesia to look over it, to kind of give their guidance on like, okay, well, we see, you know, students or we see applicants all the time. So this is something you could change this and there. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just start early, do multiple drafts, ask everyone and their mother to read your personal statement. I mean, literally ask your mother. Like, ask anybody to read it and or let them give you their opinion. But I think, yeah, we'll like cap that about personal statements because they're not too big of a deal. Anything else?
I love my personal statement.
I love personal statements. They mattered more.
It was my baby. I felt
but I told them we'll post it. We were going to post your personal statement.
Yeah.
Because he had it really was a good essay. It makes me cry sometimes.
Yeah, it was very captivating. People said to me. I had a resident who was like, yeah, man, I have your paper right here. It's like, normally I don't read these personal statements, but the first sentence caught me, and I had to read the whole rest of it. I was like, there we go. I'm not a writer, but I'm catching attention. I like it.
So
you write a book.
Yeah, that's what they say. So we'll post more about that. But I think like a lot of people are asking questions. I promise you guys we're writing them down because I think that goes into this next topic, which is your CV. And this is what I think personally was me and Denzel's strongest thing going into interviews. That was the thing that I think got people.
Yeah.
As once you get in the door and you get the interview, when they saw our CV, I thought that was the thing that made me a strong candidate, if I had to guess. And
so you have multiple sections in your CV.
Yeah.
You start off with a little bit of your history of what you've done. If you worked before school, you put that in there. If you're an EMT before coming to med school, different things like your past life before medicine. And then the main section that everyone asks about is research and volunteer. I think it is kind of like the blown out of proportion, like your step score in a sense. But I think you have to spend time here because it's like checking a box. You have to do it, so just do it, right? But it's also where you can show where your dedication really lies. So I am not a researcher at all. That's just not my strong suit. I wish I loved it as much as other people do, but I just don't love it as much, right? But volunteering, that's what I do love, and that's what I'm passionate about. So you saw that in my CV. While I had 2 publications, one in processing or...
We don't have any
No,
publications.
not yet. We had 2 in the process.
We had 2 research experiences. So we don't have any publications. I want you guys to know, 0.
Yeah.
And we still matched. Okay? 0 publications.
So we were a research assistant on one research program, and then we did a case report ourselves. And then that was the 2 things. We checked the box for research, we're done. But then we had about 7 or 8 volunteering things that we did. We started our own volunteer organization, our own nonprofit. We worked with the Leukemia Foundation. We worked with the neighborhood food pantry. We worked with the neighborhood local high school. So we just had a whole litter of things that we did with volunteer work. And that's where we showed our dedication to. So when they looked at the CV, it was like, you check the box for at least 1 of each, right? But we saw that you're really passionate about community service. Let's talk about that. And that's what that was their guideline for conversation and interview. And then after you get past the research and the volunteer, you look at, what's your hobbies? And this is where they say, is this person human? Or do they have things that they like to do outside of studying? They're like, oh, you like to barbecue. Sherry doesn't love barbecue, but she likes to. You like sewing. You like, craftsmanship. You like doing fishing. Like
blogging.
You like mountain biking, blogging. Like these are things they brought up. And they're like, well, you like mountain biking?
Yeah. Oh, I mountain bike too. What kind of bike do you have?
Exactly. These are things that they start conversation with.
Yeah. And going back to the volunteering, because I get so many questions about volunteering, you guys have to Google. You have to do this research on your own. I can't even tell you how many opportunities there are. And I don't care that it's COVID. There is more volunteer opportunities now than ever before. And what you need to do is this simple thing. Volunteer opportunities in Auburn Hills, Michigan. That's all I do. And I found and emailed everyone that I saw that had, it could be medical related, you guys. You could do a COVID swab, volunteer to do vaccines, whatever. But I mean, we literally worked at the food pantry. That has nothing to do with anything, but what does it have to do with is addressing food insecurities, which is very important to me. And I think that that's part of medicine. Working with children, which because I'm going to pediatrics, that's very important to me. And so think about those kind of things is like, let's say you're going to OB-GYN. Why don't you volunteer with teen moms? Why don't you volunteer with breastfeeding advice? Whatever, like there's so many things you could do. And if you can't find the perfect thing, then make it up. Literally make your own organization, make your own volunteer opportunity. Look into a church. They have a million things to do. I'm telling you guys, it's so much easier to find than you think. You just have to do your research. Like you have to look this up, create your own opportunities.
Exactly.
Me and talk about this all the time. You have to be your own advocate.
Right.
No one will hold your hand through this process, especially as a Caribbean student. You have to do this by yourself. You have to look it up. You have to find the jobs. You need to apply. You need to call them a million times until you're in there. How much time did you dedicate volunteering per week? There's times where I was working 40 hours per week during. I was volunteering for that long because that was my organization. Obviously, that's not possible when you're actually doing rotations, but I was in electives, so I was actually spending all my time on my organization.
Mm-hmm.
but there was times where I was only volunteering once a month,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I showed is that I was dedicated to my community
Mm-hmm.
because I was with the Children's Leukemia Foundation for 2 years, the whole time in Michigan. I started there and I stayed there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's a way of showing like you're dedicated and you care about your community.
Right.
Is it okay to most for sure
Mm-hmm.
if during your third year, but my best advice is make it third and fourth year.
Yeah.
Fill those years and you should just be spending like one Saturday a month at a clinic. One Saturday a month in the morning you're feeding the poor.
Or food
Whatever it
pantry,
is. Yeah,
packaging
food
food.
pantry.
That was what I mean, it felt into my OCD. I love like organizing the cans and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
like maybe it tickles that little intrinsic value to you that maybe you want to stack some cans at the food pantry, stuff like that.
While you're in the Caribbean, actually, there it's still possible. So, like, let's say if you go to Ross or one of the other schools, we used to volunteer at clinics all the time. I knew nothing
Yep.
about. I don't know how I was volunteering at these clinics because I had no skills at that time. But I was. I mean, I was going to Salibia. Yeah, blood pressure
Yep.
checks.
Exactly.
You could literally set up a stand. This is what people were doing during COVID. Some of the people in my elective. Setting up a stand at the park and taking people's blood pressure for free.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was high, telling them to go in and see their doctor. I mean, that was literally what they were doing for 40 hours a week to get these volunteer hours
Mm-hmm.
for the elective we were in. And it's just, you just got to be creative. And there's so many opportunities to do it in the Caribbean and at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, join clubs, all of that to get the volunteer opportunities. But then the other thing, like the research, Sherry, do you have like any experience with research?
Yeah, so I did research prior to going to med school. So during my gap year, I worked at University of Tennessee Health Science Center neurology department, and I grew neurons from teeth. Wait. So they had the specific deletion, chromosomal abnormality, and so the neurology department was connected to the dental school, the medical school, the PA school, and nursing school, all of that. So I would go downstairs, get the teeth. They already had the genetic paper that said that they had this specific sequence, so blah, blah, blah. Take the teeth, break the teeth up, extract the dental pulp, which is basically stem cells. Then I would take the stem cells and then I would basically differentiate them into neurons. So I grew neurons and then I stained them and looked for like different characteristics, blah, 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 blah. So I did that for during my gap year before college. And I mean, before medical school. And then during college, I was a lab assistant for microbiology and general biology. And then I did like bioinformatics in college. And then in medical school, I didn't do that many extracurricular activities my first 2 years, except for like clinic days, like blood pressure checks. I would do that because I was like just trying to make sure I passed. Like I was just trying to pass at that point. And then third and fourth year, like I continued like did stuff at my local church. I would do stuff like the sisters. I was part of the sisters ministry at my church. We used to do package for purses, and basically we would get a purse and then put like essential needs, because what people don't know about Atlanta is a great place, but the homeless population is high. It's very, very, very high. So we used to pack purses and hand them out. So we used to do that. And then before then in college, like I had to do like 25 hours per semester because I was part of the undergraduate medical academy. So we did like food pantries, we did walks for literacy, we did what was it? We did like breast cancer awareness. There are so many things. And then like just to reiterate, you guys have to Google and ask questions. Your coordinator, your attendings, there's always something. You're in a hospital, so there's always something to do for volunteering and research. Like I'm not a research coordinator, so I cannot tell you like, hey, I'm doing this research project, or I'm doing this research project, or I'm doing this volunteering opportunity. The research that I found, like those 3 case reports, I did all 3 in the 12 weeks I had for internal medicine. I found a case, I thought it was interesting. Okay, hey, what do you think about this, Dr. Topu? You think this is a good case I could write up? Yeah, sure, write it up. I'll look at it. Next,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is a good case. You think this is a good case report? Yeah, write it up. I'll look at it. Another 3 weeks pass. Oh, this is a really good case. I think I should write about it. Hey, yeah, write it up. And luckily for me, I literally submitted to GFAP and Family Medicine Experience, and I got not publications, but I got 3 case reports for a national conference at 2 national conferences. And I literally just asked. It wasn't like I was in this research club and I found it like the UTHSC. I Googled research assistant jobs. When I was in college doing research, I asked my professors did they have jobs. And when I was in IM, I literally asked, hey, do you think this is a good case report? And I wrote it. You have to learn how to create your own opportunities. Your opportunities are not going to be handed to you. You have to ask questions. You have to Google. You need to be proactive. That's literally all I did throughout my entire medical school journey. I always was very proactive with asking questions. I'm going to ask 5 million questions. I'm going to ask you, hey, is there a volunteer opportunity? Hey, oh, I saw that the hospital usually does a lot of like walks and like breast cancer walks, and it's HIV awareness or sickle cell awareness. So they have their own um, volunteering opportunities, and then also the attendings have stuff that they do too. So they're like, oh, I'm going on this walk, like, hey, can I join? They're like, sure, I'll even pay for your registration fee. Like for Dr. Christie, when I was in Atlanta Medical Center, he had his own fundraiser for like basically healthy lifestyle, and he paid for students to go. Like he's like, hey, I'm having it, do you want to go? And he bought us all t-shirts.
Yeah.
Like you have to make your own opportunity.
Yeah. And that's, oh my gosh, I hope that's like the biggest takeaway from this whole talk today, you guys, is like the reason why I think we had strong CVs, all 3 of us, is because we are strong advocates for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we are always asking for opportunity, not waiting for someone to say, hey, do you want to be on my research project? 0 people will do that for you. Mm-hmm. You have to ask yourself. And someone says, a lot of people are saying, can I put my volunteer experiences from before medical school? Yes.
I did.
I put, you guys, I was a teacher before medical school. I put that on my application. Huge thing that we talked about.
But you also still want to make sure you're doing stuff
keep
presently.
going.
Not that be your only thing.
Yeah. That's not enough. That's what I'm here to say. What you did before is not enough. Do more. Mm-hmm. And show them, wow, this person really cared about volunteering in the church before. And when they got back to the United States, they continued to volunteer at the church, even while they were busy doing their step 2 and in 4th year. And oh my gosh, they still did that job. That's the type of thing like you're trying to build here, is showing people like you continue to care and you continue to put the effort. It didn't matter how hard your 3rd year got. You still showed up on Saturdays at the food pantry and you put those hours in because you really care about the community. Mm-hmm. So something you really love. They do ask like what times you did the volunteer service. So that's why I'm saying like show the dedication, show how long you cared about that thing. Mm-hmm.
There was a question earlier about being a part of associations with your specialty. I think that's key. There's a section on your CV that you could put that in. That
it takes zero effort.
AMC or like American College, and then the anesthesia for me and pediatrics.
Join as early as you can. Like even in basic sciences, just join. It's free. And I mean, it's like I don't think it is like a huge deal, but you just put it on your application, and the longer you're part of it, I think it shows like, oh wow, they were interested in ER 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Something like that. So easy to do, easy to sign up. You know,
may not carry that much weight, but it's also one of those check the box.
Just check the box, sign up. And someone asked about go ahead, Sherry.
It's a way to make connections, because those same places have national conventions, and a lot of people get interviews from those national conventions. Like, yeah. So I'm sure you got some. So I know for sure. Yeah.
All right. So like that's what we're go ahead and lead into it. The networking.
That's part of the CV.
That's the next part we were going to talk about. Go for it.
Okay, so for networking, I knew that I wanted to do internal medicine. So when I was at Atlanta Medical Center, I said, look, I'm applying here. I really want to, I'm really thinking about coming here. It's one of my top choices. It's close to family, and I really enjoyed my time. Look out for me in a couple months. Sure enough, I made a really good connection with all the residents. We all went out to eat. We still have our own group chat still to this day, with from the residents that I worked with. And I said, hey, look, I'm applying here in a couple months, so look out for my application. And I would check in with them and say, hey, I'm going to be applying here, blah 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 blah. And I got an interview from there. So, I mean, and I also went to conventions that had like, basically there's like conventions that have like their research days, and then there's conventions on the other days that they literally have booths, just booths on booths on booths on booths of every, like the program director there or the assistant program director there, as well as like one or two residents. They're like, hey, I remember one guy was like, he gave me his card and he was like, look, you email me when ERAS opens and I'll give you an interview. So networking is very powerful. It's very powerful. When I went to those places, I had my CV in hand like this. Hey, do you take CVs? Some of them say yes.
You sound like a CD butcher.
And like,
Hey,
a bag of like paper, like, hey, do you take CVs? Some of them didn't take them, but some of them took mine. So it's like, hey, you may shoot your shot. I was like, I hadn't even taken my step 2 CK, but here's my CV. So it's very, very, very important because medicine is extremely small. It seems like it seems like it's big, but it's really not. There's always somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
Oh my God. Even in your own community, like,
yes,
not like your mom and your dad. And I know that just sounds maybe crazy to some of you guys, but like, reach out to everyone you know. Like, if you know, I mean, like your pediatrician.
mm-hmm.
Hey, Dr. Levine, do you remember me? I was your patient for 18 years. I'm applying to pediatrics.
Mm-hmm.
And and sometimes we'll be like, hey, I know the program director at X, Y, and Z. I'll put you in touch.
Right.
And I cannot tell you how many interviews we got just from networking.
Yes.
At least half.
So we missed the in-person, what's the name, the conference you went to, Sherry?
Mm-hmm.
But we went to the virtual one, and it was just the same thing.
Right.
There was a little chat, and you hop in with the groups, and you get to meet everyone. Mm-hmm. And it's the point where there's no holding back. You just show your charisma and your excitement.
Exactly.
And that's where, like, I met a couple PDs, and I kept in touch with them from that the meeting until applications opened up. And immediately, that was the first couple interviews I got. Without even out to them, I had already been like, hey, I would love to kind of continue some of this because we talked about volunteering,
right?
The program and all this stuff. And I sent them my CV that same night. And later on that night, I also sent them a thank you for getting, just to chat.
Right.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. And then you can meet people anywhere. I was in the OR once with the CRNA, and she was like, hey, you're interested in the C? I was like, yeah, I'm applying this year. She was like, well, I'm a good friends with the PD here at the hospital down the street with the program, anesthesia program. I was like, awesome. She's like, here's his contact. He's going to be expecting an email from you. Mm-hmm. It was that quick. Like,
yeah, that was the first interview you got.
That was the first interview you got. And it was like, this was just a CRNA. Like, I just met a few days ago, and I just been practicing showing my skills in the OR. But like, I really just had a good conversation with her. I was just like being a person, like a human.
Just being normal.
Just being normal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would love to reach out. And I followed up with her. I got the interview and I said, hey, so-and-so, I just got an interview here at the hospital. I just want to say thank you again for your help. Mm-hmm. And it's little things like that. Like every person you meet, the nurses in the pre-op, the nurses on the floors, they all talk to your attendings, the people that matter. They say little things about you. And that's what it takes, that networking there. So be nice and be kind to people you meet.
Everybody you meet. Everyone you meet.
Hey, Ms. Johnson, good to see you. How you doing? Hope you're kicking it. just stuff like that.
Yeah.
You just never know how
Good
to.
morning to everyone you see, even like the people at the coffee shop,
Yeah.
the janitors, the people at the gym. You legit have no idea who is who.
Right.
That could be someone's wife. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, that was like the type of things we were figuring out. And it was just be normal and confident in yourself. And like, you're going to make these connections that can really help you one day. And because they're genuine people who can see that you're a genuine person. And yeah.
And to follow back up with that networking thing, like staying in contact, we actually had an attending after we finished all our nonprofit stuff, reach back out to us. We've been kind of keeping her in the loop and say, hey, can I rewrite you guys' recommendation letter? I want to rewrite it for you. And it caught us off guard. We're like, what? Well, like.
You want to put in more effort for us?
What? Little thing. We would constantly message her about our achievements, things that we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
It just turned into it was just a snowball effect. You keep doing good things, you keep going down the right path, things will kind of fall in line. So I think that's the biggest thing I hope you can take away from this is networking is key, and it's good to start early. Mm-hmm. And it could just be a small network. People you meet, at the gym here and there. And next thing you know, you start blossoming. It starts growing like wildfire. It's like, so-and-so? Yeah, I met him at the gym. Yeah, he's a student of mine too. And yeah.
Or even like the church that we went to there. Mm-hmm. We met doctors at the church that he went to. We met a Ross. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like someone who went to Ross in the 80s.
We're like, you got to meet so-and-so.
Yeah.
Residents you're applying, you should meet him. We met him, and they kind of just took us under his wing, and he was like a mentor to us. Mm-hmm. Also, those are things you should look for too, mentors in your field of specialty.
Yeah. Hey, would you mind being my mentor? I'd love to keep in touch with you, and then during interview season, you can ask them, hey, would you mind reading my personal statement and giving me some feedback? Hey, would you look over my CV and let me know what you think about it?
Hey, would you do a mock interview with me?
Oh, yeah.
And I did 2 or 3 mock interviews with my mentors who are anesthesia on the boards for, candidates. Mm-hmm. And it's if you can get through that and like have that pressure and a kind of a more relaxed, it only fine-tunes you for when you go. And I think, Sherry, you want to start talking about interviews now? We can kind of transition to interviews.
Should we answer a couple of these questions really quick before we move on
to
interviews? So a lot of people are asking us, and then someone said, like, if you have research experience during a master's program, you can count that? Yes.
Yes.
Anything, yes. How do you start a nonprofit? That's a really big question. I think that
Investopedia, look it up.
Yeah, that's gonna be something you guys have to look up, like how to actually start a nonprofit. But I think the best place to start is find something you're passionate about and just volunteer in that thing. Because you should not start a nonprofit unless you have plans to use that nonprofit. Because you have to pay. It's expensive to start a nonprofit.
But it's not out of reach.
It's not out of reach. Yeah, like it's a couple $100. Like you can do it, but do it only if you have a goal for that nonprofit and plan to use it to get grants and stuff like that. Like it's a little bit more complicated, but you can start like a volunteer organization without being a nonprofit. Yeah. And just find what you're passionate about. Find a couple other people passionate about that. That's all you need. Just a couple people, and you start a group, and you do your thing that you're passionate about.
And then it can easily grow into it.
Yeah, and then maybe one day you decide you want to do the whole nonprofit thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Sherry, should I be putting STEP scores, GPA on my CV?
No.
They're stellar.
They're already on, like, when you put your ERAS, they see your transcript, they see your step scores in the whole nother section. You don't have to put it on your Yeah.
Well, like the one that you're giving out at the events, do you put it on there?
Oh yeah, on the one I gave out in the event, I didn't put my step score, but I put my GPA on there. And in addition to the guy giving me like, hey, message me, whatever, I had the opportunity to go to New York to do an away rotation just from handing someone my CV. I had a dinner with the program director weekend of the national convention. So you better be making your own opportunities and talking to people. That CV worked. It worked.
CV works. So I think like the consensus for that is like if you have stellar STEP scores or GPA, then yeah, but it's not. And then someone asked, did you ask for LRs during third year? And if so, how? We talked about that for like a good 20 to 30 minutes on this talk. About maybe 15 to 20 minutes into this talk, we talked about that. So if you wait till it's posted, you can rewind back to that part and we'll talk about that. We talked
about your third year.
Yeah. Okay. And then all the other questions we've kept track of, but let's talk about, what was the last thing we wanted to? What did you just say?
Thank you so much. So, and then doctoral optimist, you have to decide if you want LLC or 501c.
Yeah, it's a complicated.
Yeah, that depends on if you want tax break and not have to be tax exempt, all that stuff. There's multiple levels to it. It's doable. You just got to figure out what you want to do. We had a person, a lady we networked with, and her son was autistic, and she created something called Color of Autism, and it was a way of teaching autistic kids through like a video kind of teaching style, and it was very cool. She was a nonprofit doing that, and it was awesome.
It's supposed to be something you're passionate about.
Yeah, just something simple.
So I guess the last thing is communicating during season interviews. Like we've talked a lot about networking and how important that is, but I think we talked about this on the blog that we just posted about couples matching, but it's relevant to anyone who's matching in general. Is keeping in contact with people after you interview and just through interview season. So what I mean by that is don't be afraid to write emails to people that you want to interview with and be very upfront about what your intentions are for emailing. And what I mean is write an email that says, hey, I really want to interview at your program in South Dakota. I feel very passionate about your program. This is why. I really love that you guys are involved in the community. I saw the Black Lives Matter march that you did last year. And to me, I really liked seeing that. And that makes me want to interview with your program. I would be honored to interview at your program. Stuff like that. Those were the emails we were sending out to people who hadn't sent us an interview yet. And that's how we got a lot of the interviews, was reaching out.
Yeah. I got 3 that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times there's so many people applying now that it's virtual. I don't know if this coming year will be, that you could get overlooked easily, or they just haven't gotten to your application. Mm-hmm. And instead of dealing with all the anxiety at a program that you really want to be at, just reach out and be the first one to break the ice and say, hey, I want you. Yeah.
Can you look at me?
Can you look at me?
Yeah. It's really, I think we got a lot of the interviews, especially the programs we really loved. We reached out to them and we told them why we loved them so much and how important it was for us to interview there. And that even saying hey, this is my dream program. Since if that's a program, and you might be shooting your shot. You might think, I'm never going to get an interview at this program. Mm-hmm. And you never know. Yeah. You actually might, and you actually might match there. Mm-hmm. Putting yourself out there and being confident enough to be hey, I really want you to look at my CV and my statement and just give me a chance. I want you to see what I can do. Please, look at my, you're not saying it like that, but that's what you're saying in these words.
You put things to actually add to that email. Always put your picture in there so they know what you look like. Yeah. Photo, and then put your application ID number.
Yeah.
Your
AAMC ID.
So application. That's if you don't put that, then they're okay, I'm about to search for you.
George Smith.
So give it to them on the platter. Make it easy. Here is all the stuff you need to see. Just go put this number.
Just look me up, please. Give me a chance. Mm-hmm. Saying it in a nicer way, and we got a lot of good feedback from that. I think that was one of the things we did. Yeah. And then maintaining that after you interview, sending thank you notes. Mm-hmm. By email, and then telling them, especially once you figured out what your number 1 program is, we up front just said, I am ranking you number 1. Yeah. I love your program. It would be an honor to be a resident there in June. That's where I hope I end up. Being really, if they don't respond, you keep emailing? No.
No.
You email once, and sometimes it takes forever for them to see it. Sometimes they never answer you. And
or you'll just get a denial, and they'll be
yeah. Sorry. I'll get a the next day. Yeah,
it's a couple of days later,
The way to help make sure you're getting seen is to do your program coordinator as well as the PD. So CC your program coordinator, but send it to the PD. Yeah. That way, if the PD doesn't see, at least the coordinator can maybe say, hey, did you see
email from this lady.
Yeah, so that's a good way to maybe try to like get both, you know.
Someone to see you.
It's
Right.
not two hands.
Hey, hello, look at me. I think including a picture. There was one time where someone was like, I really liked that you included the picture in the email you sent me. Like someone told me that during the interview. And so I think it just like, they're like, hey, like that person looks like a nice person. Or,
it's a psychological thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you get an email from a random person, it's just like, thank you, Bobby Gosey. But if it's like, thank you, Bobby Gosey, and it's a professional photo, and then the thing is very organized, has your phone number, your email address, your AMC ID, all that in there, and they're like, this was very well put together. They thought about this.
Yeah.
And that shows part of your personality, you
Right.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're very straight to the point, that also shows your personality.
Yeah.
It's like,
serious.
don't be around a bush. I would love, no.
Yeah.
I want to be at your program.
Yeah.
I look forward to
I used to sign my emails and I would say, I can't wait to be a resident at your program in June.
Yep. I said it in an interview. I was like, hey, I'll see you in July.
Yep. See you soon.
Speak it into existence.
And for this question, when emailing, did you use your Ross or personal? Personal.
Yeah,
create a whole new email. Like mine is just my full name at gmail.com.
Right.
And only for match season, but now it's becoming my professional email, it seems
For
like.
residency.
As I go into residency.
And it makes it easier. I just put bobbydgosey@gmail.com. That's so simple. Somebody can easily.
Right.
Not like future doctor at gmail. Like not like your name. It just
chocolate something.
chocolate lover.
It needs to be appropriate, okay? Like,
That it connects to your name and stuff.
and you, same email you put on ERAS. You don't
Yes.
too many emails. Use the same one.
Email on your ERAS and your OET exam. When you're registered for your OET exam, use the same email from your OASIS. Just use the same email. I'll just So Sherry, let's talk about those questions that someone sent you, and then I'll ask the questions that people sent us too.
Okay. So I can't pull it up.
I have it.
Okay, cool. What was it?
Oh wait, can you see us now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant brief intermission. Okay, so questions that Sherry got were, I personally want to know if you had time to pursue research or case reports in your third year, or did you wait until your fourth year to pursue them?
Third year internal medicine, 12 weeks. I did 3 case reports in those 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I very close to doing another case report in fourth year during interview season, but the pathology ended up coming negative. So I mean, if I see a case, I'm gonna take it. I mean, it doesn't matter. If I see a case, I'm gonna take it. But I just
So like the opportunity, whenever the opportunity presents itself, or whenever you present the opportunity to yourself, we'll say.
right.
And someone asked, do you guys have a sample letter of intent? I have on my blog, the most recent blog we posted, I have a sample letter that I sent. I don't know if that's relevant.
But that was for an interview, like requesting an interview, right?
We'll post one.
Yeah, do that.
Pay attention to the coming weeks and we'll post one on there.
Yeah, 2 different ones. There's a letter of intent for interview, then there's letter of intent for ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have it. I have to post it.
Yeah, we'll share that. That's a good thing to share. That helped us too. Sherry, how did you study when you got home from the hospital every day? Like, how many questions did you do every night?
So it depended upon what was the shelf. So because, like, for example, IM shelf had like 1,200 questions on UWorld versus PEDS had like 400 questions on UWorld. Psych had like 200. So it depends on, your schedule, as well as how many questions for each shelf. So what I did is I did not wait till I got home to do questions. If I was in between patients and I could do 1 to 2 questions while I was just sitting there, I would do it then. I just made opportunities for myself because in some instances, I cannot wait till 6, 7 o'clock to do 50, 60 questions because by the time you get off, you're going to be exhausted. And it takes more time to actually review questions to learn why you got it right or why you got it wrong versus actually doing the questions. You can do questions all day, but to actually sit there and figure out why if your thought process was correct, that's the part that takes time. So what I did was I had my iPad. I had the newer white coats that Ross had applied that you have now that you can fit an iPad and your phone in there. So I had my iPad and I would have like a UWorld. I would just put 20 questions. So sometime between about 8 a.m. to 5, somewhere in my shift, I would at least get to 10 to 15 questions that I could do. But I think at the most, I probably do maybe 40 questions. But again, if you do 40 questions, you have to spend time going through why you got those questions wrong. You can't just do 40 questions and say, oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow, because you're not going to do it tomorrow.
And you're not going to like remember.
And you're not going to remember.
You did that or whatever. We honestly we did not study a lot during the week. I think we studied more on the weekends and like days off.
Yeah.
And then like weeks leading up to the shelf, we studied a lot. But for the most part, for the rotation, like you learn so much while you're at rotation that like it's not like basic sciences. Like you're not going to be studying all the time. You're going to have a lot more free time, which I think was a question someone asked was like, do you have more free time in 3rd and 4th year than basic sciences? So much. And that's why I'm saying you have the opportunity for all those other things we talked about, because you just don't have to study as much. You learn while you're doing it, and that's the stuff that you remember is like the patients you see. So you learn so much during the rotation.
It's more applying at that point. It's less reading and more applying.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that addresses that question. Then, so the other question was, for the OET exam, do you suggest that we wait till 4th year? I want to get it out of the way early. I think you could take OET whenever. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with anything. It's the dumbest test that anyone ever created. You have to take it. Please take it as early as possible. If you need to study for it, and if you need a guide for how to study for it, look on our blog. There's an OET blog. It's not hard to study for, but you just can't. Even if you're an English speaker.
Yes.
You need to study for it because it's a very weird test that's graded very subjectively. It's I would not say it's a very fair test.
Yeah.
Is my personal opinion on that, but it is what it is, and you have to take it as an IMG. Take it as early as possible because we have many people we know who got pulled out of the match this year because they didn't take their OET on time.
Yes.
Or their grades back on time because of
OET.
Not because of them. My grade was missing for a while. I didn't get my grade, and I could have just been out of luck.
Right.
So take it early. And that way, if you fail, you could just take it again. If you fail one section, it's just something you got to get out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope one day it changes and it's not this anymore. But
yeah. I think the OET is required again for this year, as well as the comp for CS for raw students. Even though we don't have CS anymore, you still have to take the comp for CS because you have to be ECFMG certified, and raw has to have some type of way to ECFMG certify you. So you're going to be taking a practice step to CS, which is the clinical assessment, where you're going to be talking with the fake patient about what their symptoms are, and then you're going to be typing the HPI and about that, and then you tell them your diagnosis and stuff like that. So you still have to do that on top of OET. So OET, there's no comp, there's no practice or anything. They may change that because the way they sprung OET on us for match 2021 was crazy. Like we were in the middle, like in August, and they were like, oh, hey, take OET. So, a lot of people had issues with just scheduling. The issue was a lot of time scheduling and getting the test score back. So I actually have a YouTube video about OET and the sources I use. It's like maybe 10, 12 minutes. And I used that. I studied for like a little bit, about maybe 4 or 5 weeks, but I was also doing an online elective during that time. And I had to actually go to Miami to take mine because that was the only place that was available. And I mean, that test is very subjective. I know people who have failed the test and then requested it to be regraded and then passed. Like,
Yes.
what? Like,
It's like,
and it's not like 1 or 2 points. They're like hundreds
yes.
to hundreds of points. Like,
Yes. So
so take the test as soon as possible, please.
give
Please.
a chance to just go through the hardship that is the OET. Yeah, so there's the YouTube video about it, and there's also our blog about it. So there's resources for you guys to look into what we did. Yeah, that's what I have to say about the OET. Okay, let's see these other questions. The one question here, did you guys do C or X? I did C, Denzel did X, Sherry did C. You're good, no matter what you pick. Pick whatever you think is best for you.
Yep.
Okay, so now questions that people had asked earlier in here. Did you do extracurriculars in basic sciences? So yeah, I did. I don't remember it being brought up much on my interviews, but Bobby started the anesthesia club at Ross, and so that was brought up because he had a leadership position and like the initiative to actually start type of thing. Like I was in a lot of clubs. Like I was in Phi DE, Salibia. I don't even remember, Peds Club. And so I think like the good thing about being in those clubs is that's where you can get some volunteer opportunities. But other than that, like I don't overload yourself, but be involved in something.
Yeah.
Be involved, but don't like think you need to be in like a million clubs.
Yeah. I think I did like 2 clubs, SNMA, and then I did 3. I did SNMA, I did White Coats for Black Lives, and then I did like I think internal medicine or something like that. My main thing was I need to study to make sure I actually can become a physician, and I felt like if I got involved in too many clubs, it was going to be too distracting. So if you become a member of a club, don't become a member of too many clubs. And or you could just choose one club you really, really like and have a leadership position, because they also that's another opportunity to have leadership skills. Like, hey, I was president of the Peds clubs, or hey, I was president OBGYN, or I founded, anesthesiology club. That's going to stand out more than you being members of 20 million clubs that you probably didn't do anything in. So that would be the best.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me see. Thoughts on MPH program? Just like anything else, it's an addition to your resume. I don't think it's necessary, but I think if you have it, great.
Yeah.
Like it's just another addition to your CV. Let's see some of these other questions. Is there anything a student should do in their first year to prepare for the match? And I think we kind of like focus on your grades and getting through. Your first year is so hard, like your first semester. So I would say just focus on getting through your first year. And if you decide to join some clubs and volunteer here and there, then great.
Yeah, I agree.
You research sometimes there was research that came up while we were at Ross. I don't really remember much of it.
I did. It didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because research is mainly about funding. So sometimes we would have research opportunities, or it will fall through and something happen with funding and stuff like that. But your main goal is to study and pass, because when you get into those clinicals, they're going to ask you what's wrong with this patient. And if you've been down the street, taking blood pressure, that's great. But they're gonna they're gonna want to know, if they give you a patient, what's wrong with them? What are the differential of the patient? Okay, after you got the differential, what is his treatment? you have to know that. So spending majority of your time about, getting things done and studying so you can be able to present a patient and know what's going on is going to be more beneficial for you than being in 5 million clubs. Now, I'm not saying don't join a club, but prioritize what you need, because they're going to look at, your step one score, your GPA, before they're going to look at your rest of your CV for a club anyway.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep. Someone says, sorry if this has been brought up earlier, but when you ask for an LOR, would you let the preceptor know a specialty you want to go into? You can, but it's not necessary for them to be like, X, Y, and Z would be a great pediatrician because blank, blank, blank. Like one of my letters was internal medicine, and like Sherry said, that's zero to do like with pediatrics, but that was probably one of my strongest letters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, my surgery was my strongest, and I'm not a surgeon.
Yeah, like you had a good surgery letter, and you're not.
But I think part of that relationship that you build with that attending is talking about your future goals.
Right.
So that's something they potentially should already know, but if they don't, you can always bring it up.
Yeah.
But I would say, hey, I'm going to anesthesia. Would you
write me a letter for anesthesia?
I would say, maybe you've already had that discussion, like, because usually they ask you, what do you want to be? What kind of doctor you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you're just asking for a strong letter of rank. I don't think you have to say you want to do whatever it is. Because one of the letters, they could say, this person would be a strong candidate for any specialty. Hopefully it's the one we want. Or, hopefully it's internal medicine.
Mm. Yeah. And the way around that is, if you say, for instance, you're not sure what you want, just asking for a strong generalized letter of recommendation. So it's not particular for any specialty. They're just speaking from a place. Hey, this will be a good candidate, like Denzel was saying, like this will be a good candidate for any specialty or wherever the person goes, because you don't want to say, hey, I really, really love general surgery, and then you get there and they write a recommendation letter for you and it says this person is going to be a great surgeon, and you go into internal medicine. You cannot use that. You cannot use this.
Play the other side of that, Sherry, is that sometimes that can also be a benefit, making you very well rounded.
Right.
Like if I'm anesthesia applying, but they're like, I would love this to be an internal medicine resident. That
Right.
builds, like, oh shoot, this person, their intern year is going to be well,
That's true. That's true.
They took the time to really, like you took the time to be really good in surgery during your time in surgery.
And they impressed an internal medicine doctor, and they impressed an anesthesia.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
Just like so gung ho in internal medicine that, yeah, you were great. I would write a strong letter for you, but like,
right.
Wish she would come to surgery because she's so good, kind of thing.
That's very true too. I didn't think about it that way. Maybe because I was like internal medicine.
Brainwash.
No. I felt the same way, but just opposite of you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So does organizing meetings, events for a student group at a school count volunteer experiences?
So no, that would count as a leadership experience.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Event coordinator, you are the event coordinator, you are the social media chair, whatever. That's not a volunteer experience. A volunteer experience is taking time of your own to do something for the community or for some population of people.
Mm-hmm.
How can we access this IG live session for future reference? We're going to publish it on iGTV.
Yeah, I think I can too. I think.
Yeah, it'll be on I'm pretty sure it'll be on our profile. Yeah, that's our hope.
If we do it right.
I really hope this gets saved somehow. That would suck if it didn't. Let's see. I think we only have one more question. A quick summary of the application timeline, please. And when did you start working on getting your residency application together? I think you need to look up the timeline for what it is like this year. But for us, the first thing we did was talking about our CV, or we started working on our CV early. That's something you can work on at any time and keep updated as you go. Starting in first year, just keep it updated. That way you have a list of what you did, because you're going to forget the stuff. So just like start your CV and just type research, whatever. I was the president. I went to this clinic. I did this walk, and just write it all down because you're going to forget. And then your personal statement, you can start early. And like we were just talking about earlier, you need to look up the timeline, but just try to be not a procrastinator. Time of your life. If you have been a procrastinator your whole life, it's okay. But today is the day on residency applications you're going to decide, I'm not procrastinating because I want my life to go smoothly.
Right.
As I go through this season. So as soon as it opens up, have that, you have it ready to go and you're just making improvements on it. And you can look up, I think it's residency application timeline. I know they published it recently because someone sent it.
It went back to September this year. Okay.
And someone said, are there rules for your CV? So the thing is your CV on your ERAS application, you're not uploading a document. You're putting,
you're copying and pasting all of your.
Yeah, it's leadership activities, and then you put them in. So there's not a limit on there. But when you're handing someone a CV, it would be very helpful for you to hand them one piece of paper and not a packet. But my CV is a page and a half, I would say. Yeah. Mine is I would put it back in front. If you're gonna give it to someone, I would try to print it back in front if you're gonna do that. But try to keep it to one page and just
hand them one page.
Yeah, don't give them.
Here, you get a CV.
You get a CV.
Yeah, to that.
Did you talk about the tough questions yet encountered during the interview trail? We haven't, and we could talk about it a little bit, but I did post a whole blog about our most commonly asked interview questions and exactly how we answered them. And then I even posted a document that you could print out yourself and you could write in your answers to each question. So I would definitely recommend you go check that out. But I mean, can you think of any off the top of your guys' head, you guys, tough interview questions?
I honestly didn't have any.
They were very I thought they were gonna be harder than they were, but they were just asking me stuff about me.
Yeah.
I know me more than anybody else.
Yeah,
I think the best thing to do is do mock interviews with Ross. They have alumni you could do them with, as well as your mentors, just to keep you in the flow of thinking quickly. But a pro tip is that we just kind of had our spiel, everything kind of written out and rehearsed, and then we had the basic questions of can you name 3 things that are or reasons why you want to go into anesthesia, and then I had 3 reasons why. Or what's a weakness, or what's a failure, a thing you had to overcome. So these are all questions that we had already knew were going to come, and so we had answers to them. So by the second interview, they were just memorized. I just kind of knew what I was going to say, and it was taking my time to deliver the information to them because I already knew what I was going to say. So there was a question that rattled me. The one question that one of the mock interviewers put on my
radar.
My radar was, teach me something in 60 seconds that's not medical. And so I taught him how to make tortillas because I love to eat. So that was, do something simple like a food or a side dish. He was so that way you don't get all stumped up on trying to think of something. So I was I had my ingredients down for some tortillas, boy. I had them ready. And asked that twice, and I was oh yeah. I don't even need the 60. I gave it to him in 30 seconds. And I was here you go. And she's oh my God. I was yeah, them things make you slap your mama. So that just kind of shows your personality too. Talking about stuff that you people love food. That's a comfort topic. Yeah. So that's an easy question that was if I would have got caught without prepping, it'd be
oh my God.
Oh my God. Shoot. Yeah, something like that, But
yeah, I think for me, I did have friends that did have hard questions.
Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes it depends on the specialty that you go into, as well as where you apply. So if you are applying on the East Coast in New York,
yeah.
Also, different interviews, man.
different kind of interview down here in Georgia
Yeah.
or, in Tennessee or Texas. They're going to be like, oh, hi, tell me about yourself. Like Mississippi, like I got an interview at University of Mississippi. We talked about video games the entire time. We talked about because I'm a gamer. I know I play lots of games. I almost have every console that there is. I play Pokemon.
You be playing Call of Duty?
That's the only one I don't play because I cannot steer and run. Like I can't do both. I cannot. So that entire interview we talked about video games. Literally, from the little thing in ERAS for hobbies, I talked about skating on interviews. I talked about planting because I plant all the time, and I talked about video games. I spent maybe 3 or 4 interviews talking about my hobbies. The other interviews were tell me about Ross. For some that weren't that familiar with Ross, they asked me about it, and did I feel prepared? And they asked me, where do I see myself in 5 to 10 years?
That's true.
They talk about what was probably like your greatest challenge and how did you overcome it. Talked about movies, and one of the most interesting questions, because I like video games, is how can if you were to create a video that was, how could you intertwine it with medicine? So I thought that was really, really interesting. And we spent the whole time talking about that. So
fun to do.
That's like the funnest thing.
Yeah, I had a ball in my interviews, but I did, like, one of my friends who was going into surgery in New York, they grilled her. Some of them will ask you, like, from what my friends are saying in different specialties, but specifically surgery, not to scare anyone. But I'm just being honest. They gave her a patient. Okay, this patient, 20-year-old female, significant past medical history, blah blah blah, come in with abdominal pain. What is the first thing you're gonna do? Okay, after you tell them what's the first thing you're gonna do, what are you gonna order and why? Okay, you order the CT and you see stranding on the ilium, or you see a lead pipe appearance. What are you gonna do now?
Oh my gosh, like words.
Yeah. So it's like you have those kind of interviews where they just want to see how much you know, even though you may have the most stellar step scores. Some of them will still try to pimp you and ask you a whole bunch of questions. And you have some, like my interviews, is like, hey, you want to talk about video games? Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's how ours were too, Sherry. Ours were just like yours. And like, that's why I'm saying we can only speak from our experiences, which is medicine, peds, and anesthesia. And I had a great time on my interviews. There was only one interview, and it was that interview was the only one where I was getting asked questions that I was just like, oh my gosh, like I could not wait for that interview to end.
Right.
But other than that, like every interview I had so much fun talking. And and I'm in peds, so they'd be like, what superpower would you your favorite animal and why? Do you have a favorite color? Like that was like some of the questions I answered.
Right.
But the hardest question for me was tell me about a mistake you made and how you fixed it. Or like tell me about a situation where you got in a fight with a colleague and how you solved it. And like I had not gotten in a fight with a colleague, so I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't know. Or they're like, tell me about an unethical situation that you experienced. And so questions like that, you can find those if you even look up like most commonly asked questions. Those are usually on the list. And so I would take the time to try to like answer that question before, like on paper, just like write down the situation you can remember about that. And then it'll make those questions a lot easier for you to answer. But for the most part, interviews are so much fun. And you just get to talk about like fun stuff. And well, ours were like virtual this year. So me and obviously my husband and I, we live together. And so we would set up in 2 different rooms if we were both interviewing at the same time. And I would sometimes outside of the room and listen to him interview.
Huh.
And there's one time sitting out there, and it's the program director that he's interviewing with, and this is the conversation. Hey, what's your favorite thing to barbecue? I really like making brisket. How about you? Burgers are some of my favorite food. And then they're talking about that, and he's like, hey, if you come here, would you join my basketball team? You look, yeah, like we could, like you hoop, like what's your favorite basketball shoe? And I'm like, what kind of interview is going on with these? Like they were like talking like, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And oh my gosh, I just thought that was so funny. So like, just interviews are actually pretty fun in our 3 fields that we went into.
I mean, I had a surgery interview, a prelim surgery, and it was like they were very dry, kind of straight to the point. And that was the first time I got asked about my research. And one of the guys was like, "Can you explain to me what your minimum or
like the specific?" Like, he was like, "What was this paper about?" Yeah,
basically asking me the ins and out. And like, it had been so long since I even thought about it because all my interviews have been just kind of just chatting.
Right.
Let me think about it. And so like I started rambling on about like what we did in that. But I was like, it threw me off there because I hadn't been asked about research at all.
Right.
And so, but he was like a very old-fashioned senior surgeon. But yeah, most of them.
Senior
but it's like what y'all have been saying. It's fun. But also, you make it fun, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Humor, right?
So, don't like, be afraid to be yourself.
I think once you rehearse, like, what you're going to say, like, tell me about yourself, what are your weaknesses, all that. Once you have all that rehearsed and memorized, you could just play off of it now.
Right.
Like, as into the conversation, you're like, so what's one of your weaknesses? Or what's one of your whatever, your weaknesses? And I'll be like, delegating, tasks. I used to like to do it all by myself and then, or forgetting stuff, and I was like, yeah, I left the stove on. My wife got mad at me about burning up some food or something like that. Like bringing in that humor to show like these aren't just memorized, but like I can kind of play with them now. Like I know what I say, but like let's play with you. I see something in your background. Those are some break dances on your picture. Hey, do you break dance?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like to dance. This is my husband's stuff. It was like, oh, so maybe you can cut a move. What's you start bringing in like the little your humor, like your fun side, because that's what they're looking for, right, Sherry? I'm looking for. Hey, Sherry, we got to go in right now at 3 a.m. for this call. And years ago, while we live,
right? Exactly, like we live. Exactly, like show your personality. Like just don't be like, because I know a lot of people who got really nervous and didn't take the opportunity to show their personality, and they were like, yeah, like you want your first impression to be yourself, even though it's scary and it's like this is the opportunity to show yourself. Just treat it like a regular conversation. And one asks, like in retrospect, did you guys after the interview where you now matched that you would rank them highly and vice versa? So the way I did mine was I did mine. I had like a little book, which I need to find. It was like this. And so I open the book and I write down the name and I write literally every single thing about the interview, who I interviewed with, what we talked about, what I liked about it, or what I did not like about the interview. And I personally knew what I was going to rank number 1. Like at the beginning, I knew exactly what I was going to do towards the beginning middle area, because your gut, you personally, when you're talking to somebody and you connect with them, you're going to know. So, yeah, you'll know. Did you reach out to programs before the application sent to introduce yourself and tell? Okay. Yeah, I did that. Okay. So I did that. It works. And sometimes it doesn't work. I'll tell you what does not work is not trying in the first place. So I introduced myself to a program, and I actually had a friend at that program, but I did not get an interview there. And that friend did very well at the program, but they wanted to take their program a different direction. So, sometimes you may fit you may fit that year, or you may not fit the next year, but I definitely reached out to my top three programs, and I definitely got interviews at all top three. One, of course, Piedmont. Y'all already know Piedmont. And then the other one was Atlanta Medical Center. I loved Atlanta Medical Center. I was there for my entire third year and part of my fourth year before COVID, and I loved it. I made a lot of personal connections there. And then University of Mississippi, I loved. So yeah, definitely, if you gotta be like a salesperson. Like, hey, you want to sell this car? You are the car. Sell yourself. You know, like, don't be scared.
Yeah, but we reached out. When he says like before application season, I would wait like 2 weeks after your app. So it's September 29th this year.
Mm-hmm.
To look at the applications takes a second, and then haven't heard those programs start.
Right.
We call them love letters, and
Right.
start sending your love letters. And I think for us too, like when people ask like now that you've matched, did you know like after your interview you'd rank them highly? I don't know if you could ever tell like how a program feels about you. Like you want to believe that you can like oh, I think I had a really good connection, and like but
Right.
I guess you never really know that part. But we did know right away after an interview if we loved a program.
Mm-hmm.
And like our program, like we knew right away. We knew before we even interviewed there that we loved that program just because we had done research on it. But there, like other programs that I loved, as soon as I was done with my interview, I would just be like, I loved that program.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, I was medium about that program. I
Right.
felt, and you really can feel it. And then you can kind of feel like if they like you too, or you can kind of feel that. But I don't think you can feel it all the way. I was never 100% confident that like my program loved me back as much as I loved them.
Right.
Like you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And we're like kind of like where Sherry was saying earlier. Well, let me say like what Yaz is saying. You don't really know, but we were doing the same thing. We were taking notes on the whole program,
Mm-hmm.
and we kept like little things we talked about with each attending, and like that was something we included in our thank you letters.
Exactly.
I enjoy talking about cheerleading with you, and like making it spicier, but like showing them that you were paying attention, you're interested.
Yeah.
But like when we followed up with that, sometimes we got responses back that felt reassuring. It was like, we enjoyed you just as well, and people say take that with a grain of salt, but like I think a lot of it was
telling
genuine.
the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Very genuine. They can't say too much, obviously. And I think Gary, it's a little bit different because you went solo into the match, and we went couple in the sense that like we had a little bit of a play of the field, right? Like I would interview and I would say, my wife, she's applying to the pediatrics. Oh yeah, we reached out to the pediatric department. She got an interview. When she's interviewing you, she's like, yeah, we heard from the anesthesia department that they really liked your interview with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my wife has gotten an interview now. We just wanted to reiterate, we love this program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they loved her. Mm-hmm. So like put it together, like,
right.
Yeah, we love you too.
Exactly.
So like that was a different perspective that we had a couples match that Sherry, I know you didn't get to you're a solo match.
Solo, man.
Solo dolo for a little bit. Get a cholo, then you're gonna be laughing. But like in all seriousness, like there's another aspect is when you're going in, you may have a little bit of that reassurance because of your significant other.
Yeah.
And that's something that can play in your favor if you're like really on the fence about it. You're like, should I rank them? This is what we're going to tell you now, and this is what Sherry probably can chime in. Rank where you want to be. Don't try to, I felt like they really liked me. I'm going to put them in. No. If you want to be in Atlanta or if you want to be wherever, put them first. Because the match will put you where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's been like
our friends and stuff.
It's like, wow. It's like even when they try to go against the match, they're like, I'm just going to try to play the system. It still worked out into where they wanted to go.
Yeah, and they're always like, I'm so happy I ended up at this place or something,
Right.
So did you let programs of interest know that you know someone there, or is that unprofessional and weird?
Okay.
So it's a great way to do something. So like, let's say I know like John, at this program. I'm going to tell John, hey, John, I really want to interview your program. Would you feel comfortable putting in a word for me? And I only am going to expect John to put a word in for me if I deserve a word to be put in. I'm not going to ask someone totally random. Now, the difference is when you're a Rossi, usually Rossi's put in words for Rossi because of Ross. And so now that John is maybe going to go talk to the program director. Then what you're going to do is during your interview, and this has happened for us. I'm interviewing with the program director, and I'd be like, they'd be like, so what makes you want to come to my program? You know, my friend John is a resident with you guys, and I've heard nothing but good things about relationships between the residents and how they feel about whatever, and stuff that John has genuinely told me. Like, ask John what he thinks about the program. And that's when it's appropriate way to bring it up. And he'd be like, oh yeah, you know, John, I love John. I just did a research project with John. They're going to go talk to John about you and see if it's true.
Exactly.
That, you know, that you guys talked, or like, hey, you know, Yasmin, she said that you guys knew each other. Oh yeah, we were in a club together at Ross.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't ask like some random person, you know, Rossi or someone, maybe they went to undergrad with you. Maybe they were.
That's where I got mine from.
I don't know, you know, like whatever that, I think, yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we just
times.
had a couple Rossies, and we really asked them straight up like that. We were just like, hey, I'm really interested in this program. You know, what are some things that I can do? I just got an interview. Or what are some things that I could do for the interview or to get an interview? And the next thing you know, they're like, well, I talked to my program director about you.
Yeah.
And then this goes back into the beginning, you know, when we talked about networking. Everybody you meet, you build those relationships with people because you never know what can help you.
Yeah, like when you're on the island, you want to watch yourself and be a good person, because those people that you meet might already be residents by the time you get there. And you don't want to be the person who was rude or, you know, messing around,
and people
whatever.
They see, like, they pay attention. Like, they see that you were part of this club and you did this and that.
Yeah.
Or you helped them get into this club, and they see that.
Yeah, you weren't mean or, like, starting fights or something, you know?
So, and then that gets brought up even better. You know, that's like something you didn't even solicit. You just was asking, you know, asking for information. But, like, you know, and then it's brought up, like Yaz was saying, you know, you bring that up, and it's like, yeah. We go way back to basic sciences.
Yeah,
like, well,
we were in
awesome.
Solibia together.
Yeah.
We went, so, for sure.
Yeah.
Social media is your friend too.
Yeah, social media. Reach out to Rossi's.
Yeah,
if you're a Rossi, or if you go to SGU, let's say, reach out to other SGU people. I don't know if
residency programs, if you go to their website, some of them will have what school they listed on them. So you could reach out to them that way. I got one of my interviews through a friend from college. So who I still stayed in contact with. He was like, hey, you applying to IM still? I was like, yeah. He said, okay. He said, send me your AAMC ID. That night, I sent it to him. That morning, I got an interview invite. That morning, the next morning.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
working, powerful thing.
Yeah. So.
Someone had asked how many programs did you guys apply to and how many interviews? We applied to 126 and I got 17. Yeah, I got around 25.
I got
30, right? 30,
yeah.
25 or 30.
Yeah.
It also depends on what specialty you go into. You know.
I applied to 200 and I got 13.
Yeah.
So it depends. There's a lot of programs, so it makes sense to apply to more.
Yeah.
Anesthesia, I wanted to do more categorical than advanced, so I cut my numbers down. Yeah. And then a couple, so we only selected places where we knew we potentially could get in or they were close to each other. So.
Right. Yeah, I only applied categorical. I didn't apply to any preliminary spots, and I only applied to places where I wanted to be long-term. Yeah. So, because like you guys were saying earlier, I ranked where I wanted to go, not necessarily because it was a university program, because I got university interviews. I got community university affiliated programs. I got community programs. But I ranked where I really, really wanted to be. And I I really liked all of my programs except for maybe one that I was kind of surprised that I didn't like. But I mean, you don't know that until you actually go and do the interview. But where the way I did my rank is I ranked where I really, really wanted to go. And my top three was very solid. Like I knew that I would want to be at any of these programs and I would be super happy at any of these programs. So you don't necessarily, people are like, well, I think I want to rank this place because it's going to be a university program, or I think they really like me here. You have to be very careful about that because you have to realize you're going to be with these people more than your family. You're going to be with them like 18-hour days, 16-hour days, and you're going to have to work with them all the time. So you want to pick a place where you fit, in the community as well as that you fit, educationally. Like if you want to do fellowship do they have places that allow them to bring fellowships and things of that nature? It's like what's between categorical and advanced. So categorical that means that you have a contract the entire residency. So for example, IN categorical spot is 3 years. I think peds is 3 years, and then anesthesiology is 4 years.
Yeah.
Say for instance, I apply for categorical and preliminary. Preliminary means I only have a contract for 1 year. And that's my intern year. Some people choose to do preliminary, like for example, general surgery. They'll do a prelim in IM. Dermatology may do a prelim in IM. Anesthesia may do a prelim in general surgery. So when you do a prelim, you have to reapply for that match of the next year. So that $4,000, $3,000 that you applied for that previous year, you're going to be applying for again for a categorical spot. Because in order to practice, you have to finish a categorical spot. So for me, I didn't want to do prelim, and I did because I knew all I wanted to do was IM. I don't need a preliminary because what you don't realize is, say for instance, I got an IM preliminary. That 1 year I did for prelim will not count towards my categorical position. Even though I'm doing the same thing I did in my first year for prelim that I would do in my first year for categorical, it's still your first year in categorical. So some people do preliminary just so they are in the match and it keeps them in the medical field. Or if they're trying to go to a different specialty, like say for instance, they want to do emergency medicine and they did a prelim and like general surgery, just so they can get some more hands-on experience, they could do it that way. But I say it's primarily up to you. But for me, I knew I did not want to do prelim. I rather do categorical because I did not want to be doing the process all over again. And plus I'm broke. So I don't have $3,000-4,000 next year. Like, no. So no.
Yeah. I mean, it's like advanced. You could apply to only categorical programs if you're going into anesthesia or radiology, surgery, just lots of dermatology. Any program that has like a first year that's not related to it, you can do categorical or advanced. And if you do advanced, you have to apply to prelims or transitional years because you have to match into 2 programs, a first year and a second year program. But if you do categorical includes the first year. And so that's why Bobby only applied to categorical programs. Just as a couple, it made more sense. And he only applied to like 2 advanced positions. And so he had to apply to prelims for those advanced positions. So that's that. I know we're kind of running out of time. It's been about 2 hours. So we'll just answer like, one more. Quickly, did we do a sub-I where I matched? No. Match. Nope.
But I did get interviews where I did sub-Is.
Same. I got interviews where I did sub-Is and so did he. So you can get an interview from that. Which one is better for anesthesia, prelim or categorical? It's not one is better than the other. It's just you can either apply for advanced or categorical. And if you apply for advanced, you have to apply for prelims and transitional years as well to do a first year somewhere. Can you do 2 prelims in 1 year? No, you would only match to 1. IM or general surgery. If you want to do a transitional year, which is more of a mixture of internal surgery and OB-GYN, I think, and
Everything.
emergency, kind of
Yeah.
like a mixture year. Those are called transitional years, and you can also use that as your first year. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Because 8:10, so we've been with you guys for a while. Sorry that was so long, but I think we answered all the questions. If you guys ever have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah. Feel free. Slide in the DMs.
Yes. We're here for you guys, and good luck to everyone. Thank you, Sherry, for
Thanks.
Sure.
We'll do this.
everybody's name, and I'm gonna try to end this and put this on my timeline.
I'll try to too if I can.
Yes. All right, guys. Talk to all of you. Bye, Sherry.
Bye.
Sherry.
Okay.